Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Game Dev Tutorials. Today I'm going to be doing sprite sheets, and specifically today I'm doing that because I am handing out the solution. So the complete solution is downloadable down in the provided materials section of the description. So our goals today are our steps I should say. Our goals is to add the sprite sheet. Our steps is to add animated 2D class, to add the frame animations class, talk through them because I'm actually not going to type them all out today. I wrote these over years and years and edited them, and then today I stripped them down to the most understandable portion that I can, and then we'll add to them later, of course. So there's a lot in this. The code's not massive, but the precision required is pretty high, and like I said, I'm handing them out, so we're going to talk through them. Then we're going to change a tackable object to an animated 2D, and essentially it's going to inherit from animated 2D as opposed to basic 2D, which it currently is. Then we are going to add frames to all the constructors. That'll make more sense when we get to it, but essentially all the constructors are going to need another variable. And we're going to edit hero to include walk and stand animations. And we are doing that with this gem of a sprite sheet right here. Can you believe how beautiful this is? And of course I'm being sarcastic. But so what I did here was I essentially added a frame for feet movement. So basic frame, so standing frame, right foot back, standing frame, left foot back. You can't see where the right foot would be, right? It would be up here, and the left foot would be up here. You can't see them. So that's all it is. I understand it's pretty garbage temp art, but this is how a sprite sheet works. It loops, and so when it finishes here, it goes back to standing, and then right foot, standing, left foot, and you'll see the animation, right? I don't expect it to look beautiful, but it is an animation, and it will illustrate the point. I put all these borders because I can't keep crap straight. So I did my best to line everything up. It may not even be lined up perfectly, but it's lined up pretty good. I didn't notice any horribleness. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the sprite sheet, and that is the goals, and let's get into it. First things first. Oh, nice and blank. I want to add all the files. So let's go into units. There we go. And then let's add our wonderful stuff. So here's our stuff for this one. So we have hero sheet, which I just showed you. We're going to put it in units. It shouldn't be out here anyway. And then that's a content copy if newer, right? Okay, and then we're gonna have our new oops, that's not it. We're gonna have our new stuff. So we have animated 2D, which goes in the basic 2D folder. And then we're gonna create a folder for animated 2D stuff, and then we are going to plop in our frame animations. You won't have to do this right here. This is just switching from my prompt to the regular. If you haven't figured it out by now, I work it all out in one solution and then I do it again in this solution. That's how I do these videos. Honestly, I need a refresher course on this stuff for most of it because I don't think I've touched specifically these classes in 6 or 7 years. Not at least this base stuff. I mean, I add stuff to them that's like a rare use kind of stuff that I need, but I don't go into this basic stuff often because it all works. So it's just no reason to fight with it. It appears maybe something's up with this, but we'll get to that in a second. So Oh, I know what it is. In Basic 2D, we need to do a quick change up to Basic 2D. And we need to add... what was it? Frames? Frame size. So this is important for something for zooming. So I add it in Basic 2D, not in Animated 2D. You don't need it here now, but eventually we'll do zooming, and you'll see why this is important to be in Basic 2D. Past that, I really can't explain it better than that. Just to say it needed to be out there, and that's why it was complaining at me. Okay, so we have Animated 2D. It is inherited from Basic 2D. And it has these extra variables, and if you can tell, the spacing's all wrong because I was deleting all kinds of stuff out of this file because I didn't want to hit you guys with 1,000 lines of code. So I narrowed it down to its basic functions, and wanted to come down to 115 lines. Not too bad. And you can also see why I don't want to type that because there's also this one, frame animations, and it's narrowed down. Version is 150 lines. Trying to type all that in one tutorial would probably take me a couple hours to get it perfect, and then I'd probably be in and out debugging it. So we're not typing it. I'm giving it to you, so I don't expect you to type it either. All's fair, right? But basically, yeah, this is what it is. So these, actually, I don't think I need these because those are in Basic 2D, right? Yeah, I have position indents. Oh, but they're overriding them properly. We should just take this. And then do this. And then we don't need them anymore in there. Yay. Okay. So, fix that. I mean, that's a minor deal. I probably just typed that wrong when I was dealing with it. Okay. So we have frames. Frames are each one of these little majiggers. So we have a 4x1 sprite sheet, right? So the frames will be 4x1 on this one. So that's what that is. Frame animations is a list of the animations. So we will have both walk and stand when we're done. So you could have as many as you need. And we name them all with a name, and you'll see that later. All right, color... I actually don't. I think that's in. No, we don't have it in Basic 2D, so it needs to be there. Okay. Frame animations is just a bool to say, hey, are we using frame animations? Because if we use frame animations, look, then we do this as opposed to our Basic 2D's call. So if this is set to false, it doesn't matter what information this this object has. It's going to use just Basic 2D to draw it. So that's allows you to use Animated 2D like just a Basic 2D. So that's what this is. Current animation is just the iteration of which animation we're currently using. Very simple stuff. Our constructor. You can see the difference here. So we have no, not button. I want this one. So we have path, pose, dems. Here we have path, pose, dems, frames, and color. You don't need color because you just don't. But I only wanted to give one constructor, and so this is the one that I use the most. So I gave you the one I use the most. From the model, which gets set here, it's going to get the frame size. So it's going to take the frame size. To get the frame size, we take the model width over the frames. So remember, frames I said would be 4x1. To get the actual pixel size of the frame, and then same thing for height and over the y. So this would be the total height over 1. So it'll be the whole height. This will be the width over 4, so it'll be a quarter of it, and that'll give us our frames. Frames. You could. This is probably a little bit better. Just ever so slightly a better idea is to do that. And then I'll save that so that you get that as well. But remember, I wrote this a long time ago. So there's going to be little bits of things that are maybe not as efficient as they should be. Setting the rotation to 0. maybe not all that important. Do I have that here? No, I don't. So maybe it should be. That should be in the other. Let's put that over there. Let's make that change now so that you guys have the best version of this. Okay, and then properties. Now, if you don't know how regions work, you # region and then name it, and then at the end you say end region, and then that gives you a collapsible area. When I have properties, I put them in here, and they go in front of update, so above update. I treat properties very different than I treat functions. That's why I do this. I alphabetical order my properties. There's only one in here. And so what it does is allow you to change frames. So you have this piece here, right here, which really means all we need to do is say that, and it already works. This is a new addition, so that's why it's not in there. This doesn't get used a whole lot. It's very rare you change your frames after you load. I actually found in my most recent game a reason to put that in. So I put it in here because I found it useful recently, I guess. You actually don't need it right now, but anyway, it's there. I also wanted to go over regions and properties. So properties, if you can see, they're a little different than functions. So a function has these parameters right here, and has like void or whatever, right? Like properties always have a type, a return type, and then they don't have parameters, but they have this get set. So set is when you're setting it equal to something, and get is when you're trying to retrieve the variable. And so I figured I'd go over it real quick. That's another reason I included this. So value is what's coming in to the set, and then you can add whatever else you want. So that's extra stuff. This is kind of required. I wouldn't say required, but it's 99+% of your properties you're going to be setting something equal to the value. But the value is what's coming in, and then when you're returning, you return something. In this case, we're not changing that something, but if you wanted to adapt it, you could, create a bunch of logic and then return that logic piece out from your properties. Properties are very powerful. They're fun to use. I find them easy to read when done right, and I encourage you to use them when you can. Let's see. So our update is minorly different. Mostly we're just calling the base.update, which obviously goes to here, which is nothing. But it's there, and eventually there will be lots of stuff in there, like tooltips and zoom controls and all kinds of things. But if frame animations is true, and the frame animation list is not equal to 0, at null, and the count is greater than the current animation, so it's just an error check to make sure you don't break, then we're going to update that animation, and we'll go. That's here. We'll go over that in a minute. We have get animation from name, so it's basically you just hand it a name, and then it'll set the animation from that name. So it loops through all the animations and finds the one and returns it. If not, it returns -1. Why -1? Well, you can't give an int a null. You can create a nullable int, but then you have to change your code and whatnot. And this is just shorthand for a nullable int. -1 means null in this case. So that's get the animation by name. This is setting it. So in this case, we pass in the same thing. We pass in name. We set it to a temp variable. We check to see if it's -1. If it's not -1, which is null, right? Then we see if it's the same animation that we currently have. If it's not the same animation we currently have, we reset the animation, right? Because when you're coming back to an animation from another animation, I don't know that I've ever had an instance where I don't want to reset it. So there's that. And then we set the current animation to the temp animation. So we do this first so that we have different information here potentially, and then we know what to do here. Okay, and then the draw. So same bit here about the frames and whatnot. and whether that's true, and then we go and we call the frame animation draw rather than the basic 2D draw. If this is not set or this is not correct, then we're going to use the basic 2D draw. Okay? See, look at that. That took me, 12 minutes just to go over this file. And that's why I'm not trying to type it. Next, we have frame animations. These, there's a protected in here. Sorry, I didn't remove it. But we can remove it. It's not a big deal. Public. Done. Okay. And then, so here we have is fired. So that takes place if we have a fired animation. So or a function that we want to call at a certain point in our animation. So like when we're swinging a sword, let's say, there's a hit point on there somewhere. You want it to do its hit at some point, usually in the middle somewhere. Of that animation. And so has fired says whether it's fired or not. Frames is, we went over, that's the number of frames in the animation. So here we have 4 by 1, right? Okay. And then we have current frame. Oh no, frames is the number of frames. I apologize. That's the number of frames. It's different than it is elsewhere. So this is 4 in this case. But if it was a 4x4 sprite sheet, it'd be 16. Well, that's not the sprite sheet. This is the actual animation. I apologize. So you'll see how that works in a minute. So in the standing animation, we will just have this frame, so it's 1. And the walk animation will have 4. Okay. We have current frame, which is the frame it's currently on. We have max passes. So if you set this to 0, it will not affect it at all. Essentially, max passes doesn't exist. But there are times where you want your animation to run a specific number of times. Usually I'm passing in 0 because I don't care how many times it runs. But there are times when the number of passes matters. Oftentimes it's just 1. That's the answer. But there are times, like if you look at old Final Fantasies, they do like a swing animation twice in a row. So you would put a 2 in. So on and so forth. So current pass is what pass we're on. The name of the animation, very straightforward. The sheet is the entire sheet. How big is the sheet? Start frame is the start frame of the animation. All of my animations for this are in strips. So your start frame could be here. This would be, 2, 0. And then you would run, and when it gets to here, it would wrap around if there are more, and it would wrap around, and it would wrap around. Okay, so they're all in a horizontal strip. So this does require an organized sprite sheet. If you don't like that, you're welcome to change it. But in this case, this is the way I train my artists to do it, and this is the way I like working with it. It seems to be the very simplest way, at least to me. Let's see. And where are we at? So sheet frame. Sheet frame is usually equal to start, apparently. Let's look at this. I may not have stripped this out for some reason. Oh, okay, so it's used as a second variable because the other one changes. That's why. So, that's all it is. This one is the same as the start frame. It's just something that doesn't change as opposed to the other one that does at times. Frames. Total frames. We went over that. Current frame. We went over that. Frame timer. Okay, so this is how long each frame shows for. You can speed this up or slow this down. In general, 2D games, I tend to run my animations that are supposed to be smooth at 30 frames per second. And you can be like, oh, that's bad. Everything should be 60 frames. Well, all right, go for it. You can set yours to 60 frames. Do whatever you want. The ones today will actually slow down because they should be much more than 4 frames long, these animations. So I have them slowed down to, I think, 15 frames per second. But anyway, we'll go over that in a second. But that's what that is. Max passes, I've talked about that. Current pass, talked about that. Name, talked about it. Fire action. This is just what function to call when you fire your action. So, for instance, again, if you're swinging a sword and you're midway through and you reach the point where you want to fire your action, then you hit the other guy, right? And then set has fired equals to true. Now, this is the same thing here, except we have the ability to pass in the fire action. If you don't need it, then you don't need it. Now, I haven't gone over this, so I'm going to talk about it real fast. These are both constructors. If you use this set of variables, then it will call this one, and if you use this set, it'll call this one. Okay, and this one just sets fire action and all. All right, properties again. I should put in the regions because I usually have them. I don't know how those got stripped out. Okay. All right, our update. This is a small amount of code, but very precise. So, don't if you mess with this too much, make sure you back it up before you mess with it. I guess you don't need to back it up because you'll have the download available with the code here. But still, this would be a section of code you want to back up before messing with. If frames are greater than 1, right? That's straightforward. If frames are 0, there's no reason to even do all of this, so don't do it. Frame timer gets updated. If the frame timer gets tested for and is ready to switch to the next frame, and mass passes is equal to 0 or less than the current pass. Does that make sense? So you're asking, remember I told you 0 just goes through, right? And then we have more passes left. So let's do the next thing. So current frame up by 1. Current frame greater than that. Current pass. So this is when the current frame gets greater than frames. So we've completed the animation. That's what this is saying. And we add a pass. So same bit here. Now we're looking for, we're looking to see if we're done running. If we are done running after doing this, we just skip this. Sheet frame X plus 1. Remember I told you that we had this thing that changes? So we have, where'd it go? Sheet frame. Oh, sheet frame is the one that changes. The other one doesn't change. Fine. No big deal. But I told you one, I was correct that one changes and one didn't. I just had the wrong one of which changed. So we change the frame by 1. If the X is, we've overflowed the X, then we up the Y by 1. So let's look at that. So we're frame 0, 1, 2, 3. We hit 4, right? It says, no, we don't want 4. 4 is no good. Let's put it back to 0. Right? So that's how it works. Just like that. It's a nice little loop. Okay? Oop. Alright. And then this is very similar. It's just asking if the current frame is greater than or equal to frames. Then we reset that. We wrap that around as well. Okay. Reset our timer so that we can go back and time our frame. And then we have this wonderful little bit, and that is if the frame action is not equal to null. Remember, we can have it be null right here. And hasn't fired, then we fire it. Right? That's an important bit there. Firing off our timer bit is very important. Okay. You know what? I stripped out the fire frame and I think I need it. Let's put that back in. Alright, so fireframe equals 0. And then I think we're going to need it in here. I stripped this out because I didn't think I needed it. Int fireframe equals fireframe. When I read this real fast, yeah, I need it. So, okay. So, we're not going to do this today, which is why I didn't catch this when I was testing it. But it and fireframe equals current frame. 2 equals. That would be good. Okay. Minor deal, but that was that would have created bugs for you, so I wanted to make sure I fixed that. Alright, resetting it, we just set all of the basic variables. This is to test if something's if it's at the end of it. You'll ask that question sometimes. So let's say you want to swing, right? And directly after the swing is finished, you want to go to the standing animation. So in your code somewhere, you will be testing for the end of your swing animation, then switching it back to your standing animation. So that's that. And this is just our wonderful Sprite batch call. It's very similar to the other stuff. The only difference here is that we are using the sprite sheet information to get what we need. And then our image dims is a little different, so on and so forth. Screen shift is the same. All of this, it's just boils down to making sure that we're using our sprite sheet information properly. And then we're offsetting our target rectangle by the sprite sheet area. Okay, now that we've talked about the files, hopefully you understand them. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments. It is possible that I have cut things that need to be there eventually. They don't need to be there for this specific tutorial, but I may have cut things that cause bugs if you try to use the extra features I did leave in. Ask questions, happy to answer them. Yeah, this is a pretty complicated topic, and so on and so forth. So let's go back into here. Let's look. We did this. Oh no. Yes, we did this, and we did this. So we're now on change attackable object to an object 2D. So this is going to create a bunch of errors the second we do it. So attackable object should be in world, attackable object. Alright. And we're just going to switch this to an animated 2D. Okay. And then now we've broken things, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say new, oh no, just vector 2. Vector 2 frames. We are going to pass frames into our base constructor, and then we're going to pass in color dot white, right? We just wanted to keep its color for now. You could change this later if you needed to pass color in on things. Or you could just pass color into the new thing and then set it in that constructor, and that'll overwrite the white. Either one will work. So that's that. Now when I build this, we're going to break. We're going to break a lot more than these 3 times. It just hasn't found it yet. So vector 2 frames. Fat finger some stuff. FRAMES. Okay, let's copy paste that because we're going to be using that a lot. So okay, that one's done. Let's do this one. And frames, and then we do this last one, and then we're going to build it, and it's going to break again because there's a lot more things that are dependent on this. This is just the first level of them. Build it again, there's a bunch more. So we go through it all, we add frames to everything, and then that'll break again on all the uses of the instructors. So this is a a process that it just takes a little bit of time. You have to go through it and do it. Spawn point frames. Frames. Oops. Still in order so we don't miss one. Not that it'll let us really miss one, but now we're on tower. Here we go. Now we're here. There we go. Now we're getting the constructor issues. So here they all are. So for everything except for unit, we're going to say new vector2 1 1. Right? Everything's 1 by 1. It's not a sprite sheet, really. It's just a sprite. So we're going to add them. They're all right before. Oops, we forgot our comma. Let's make sure we copy paste that comma and the space so that we don't have to retype everything all the time. Alright, mob. Okay. This is one of the... Wonder why I didn't catch that one to begin with, but that's right. Frames. Okay. Temp mob. Have it there. That one just hasn't updated yet. So if you can't tell, the compiler only catches the first level of stuff usually. So first we did like building, unit, and spawn point, and then we did hero and mob and that kind of stuff, and now we're doing the very furthest level is like spiderling and spider and stuff like that. So we're getting all of these things slowly. Let's rebuild, see what we get left. Now we're at hero. So we're a little bit, this one's a little bit different. So we go in here, paste that puppy, and instead of 1 1, we're 4 1. Right? Not only that, but we have this bit here. And it's now hero units hero sheet, I believe, right? Units hero sheet, right? So change that out. Come through here, and we add this bit here. Let's build, make sure that we're actually completely done. We are. Now we're going to go to hero. And we're going to do a little bit of extra stuff here. So in order to make this work, frame animation equals true. So we are using frame animations for this character. Notice we didn't change this on all the rest, so they're just going to act like they're basic 2Ds, right? And that's great. Current animation equals 0. And then frame animation list dot add, because we're adding a new animation. New frame animation. New vector2, and then in here we're going to put in the frame size. So we're telling the animation processor what the frame size of our animation 2D is. We are telling it how many frames there are. And from this information, I guess you could get this information, but I just pass it in because it's simpler. You totally could get one from the other. Our start frame is 0, 0. Our total frames is 4. I told you I wanted to do 15 frames per second. 66 milliseconds is that. We want to run forever, and we're going to call it walk. Okay? Let's copy this. Paste it. This is only 1 long. It still starts at 0, 0. Let's go back and look at it. So standing is just this. These are our walk frames, right? And we're going to call it stand. Okay? We now have 2 animations, right? Now down here, we're already seeing we should be using the walk frame anytime these are pushed, right? And so we already know what that is. That's here. So we can say set animation by name walk. The reason I did this way is so you don't need to know which frame that is and have that memorized. When you have, like, I don't know, 50 sprite sheets in a game, remembering which one's your walk frame and which one's your stand frame and which one's your, cast frame and your attack frame and blah, 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 blah. Remembering all those is difficult. So if you can just type walk or stand, that's helpful. And then, so if we're not walking, we have an else for stand. Pretty simple stuff. And now we're ready to test it. So we jump in here. We have our wonderful, beautiful main menu we should see as soon as it does load. We break the world. Building. Yeah, that definitely breaks. Okay, so here we want to do new vector 2. So 1, 1 stuff. I forgot about these. So that was building. I don't know if there's any more, but we'll find out. Spawn point should have needed it, but there were no spawn points on that part, so that's why. So let's put that in so that it's ready to use when it gets there. Okay, run it, and we have it. So I'm gonna push play, and now look at behind the guy. I can't point it out. Ooh, we broke something. We need our... The activator classes don't find the change in things, in variable bits. So finding those, find all references. We fixed this one, right? Yeah, and we fixed this one. Yeah. And we've now fixed this one. Okay, so when I move... A mob. Mob should have wanted this. Let's go look in portal. Spawn point portal. 55. Where's portal? Spawn point portal. Let's go to spawn point then. Spawn point wants this portal. Oh, it doesn't know what to do with imp. I didn't even read it. Should have read it. And so we want to units mob imp. Did it not ever get that? Messed that up. Vector 2 frames. I think I was talking and I put the wrong bit in there. Let's make sure these are all correct. They are. Okay. Let's restart this. Mamma jamma. Oh, there we go. We have another issue with imp. New vector 2. 1, 1. Working through this one step at a time. It's definitely much harder when talking. But you can see the little feet behind the guy. Just doing little blurbs. If you wanted to slow it down, you could. You see the speed it is right now? Let's go in and change that real fast. Let's just give it a much higher number. Let's give it hero. It's just 66. Let's do 100. Or maybe 133. That would be half the speed. And now you'll see those feet move at half the speed they were moving. See them moving much slower? So that is one way to edit that. Okay? That is the tutorial on sprite sheets. I understand I didn't type it all. It just would have taken too long. I will give you the files. I do not expect you to type it all. I hope you guys understand how to use them. I hope you understand what I did and why I did it. And yeah, if you guys like the tutorial, please make sure you hit that like button. It really does help me out. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and consider Patreon, please, because then I wouldn't have these terrible sprite sheets. Past that, yeah, guys, I hope you have a good one. Enjoy the entire solution. I don't know that I'll do this every 10 episodes, but for now, I am. And the next episodes, I am planning to go through grid creation and A-star and fitting things to grids and stuff like that. So I'm going to spend some time on the grids because I don't want to get too far into this without that. If I do, then we're gonna end up with a ginormous amount of edits to have to do to our pathing, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy that. It'll be a fun bit. It'll be a little bit heavy. It'll be a little bit deep, but I think it'll be good to go over, and I hope you guys will enjoy that as well. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys next time.